Now I'm going to tell you a story about wisdom and it's layered. I'll do my best. No doubt I'll fail. And I'm sure, some of you in this class can do a much better job than I. And I'm just exercising false modesty, because none of you can. Let me just... yeah, sorry. I borrowed the story from one of my friends. I don't know if he would consider me as a friend, but I certainly consider him as a friend. His name is JC. They say he lived some 2,000 years ago. First name Jesus, last name unknown, because no one in those days had last names. They just had first names. And then their profession was their last name, like John the fisherman. Okay? Jack the pimp. Joan the prostitute. Okay? Or the name of a city. Jesus of Nazareth. There is a story that comes from one of the Gospels. And it's called the Prodigal Son. Some of you in this class have heard of the story. Some of you haven't. Some of you know the story but don't really understand it well. So I'm here to clarify certain things for you. Trust me, you don't understand the story. I'm not trying to be offensive. I know a lot of you have a lot of experience under your belt, but that being said. So let me first tell you the story in a very generic way. There's a father. He's about 60 or 70 or 80. He's got two sons. One son is about 40, the other is about 30. There is no woman in the picture. Okay? No wife, no mother. So, the older son, the 40-year-old, is very, very devoted to the father. The younger son, the 30-year-old, is relatively naughty. He's curious. He is perhaps an introvert. He doesn't do well with authority, with people telling him what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. And he comes to the father and says, I know you're going to die. He's a realistic sort of a fellow. Instead of you making me wait till you die so I can get my half of your inheritance, just give it to me now. And you can actually sit back and enjoy what I will do with your money. The older son doesn't have such a request, but the younger one does. The father says, okay, well, here's $1 million. Go make it 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. Now remember, he's 30. It's like, giving a bucket of ice cream to a 5-year-old and expecting the 5-year-old to kind of exercise modesty. I have never seen a 5-year-old being given their favorite ice cream where they only take a teaspoon and say, Dad, I think I have had my share for today. They say one should not consume more than 270 calories. I think I'm good now. You will never find a 5-year-old who speaks in that way. So this money is being given to someone who's physically, 30, but emotionally, intellectually, they're unripe. They don't know how to think about things the right way. They throw parties with their so-called friends. There goes $500,000. They buy a Tesla. They drink, and because this is Oakland, they have downloaded the weed application on their cell phone, right? Which is fashionable. All these useless people, okay? So they spend their days being drunk and high. And because they have lots of money, they call various escort services. for pleasure. One day this kid wakes up, looks into his pocket, and comes to realize he's got no money. He has the memories of pleasure, of fun, of freedom. But if you don't have money, you can't do much with those. The memories come back to haunt you. I used to live in a mansion. Now I live in a tent in the middle of nowhere. Unless you're a monk, that's not going to be fun for you. So this kid lives with the pigs, the horses, is homeless, begs, and one day says, you know what? I'm just going to go back to my father and tell him I made a mistake. And I hope that he will receive me well. He won't belt me, slap me, kick me, scream at me. So he walks back home. And the father sees him. And this father does something very, very unusual. Runs to this brat of a son. Embraces him. Kisses him. Gives him a bath. Puts on him the finest of clothes. And butchers a cow, and they have, In-N-Out burgers. Now the son, the older son, comes home, wants to know what the heck is going on. And they tell him, your brother who was lost is back. Your father is celebrating. Now you would think that the brother is happy. Happy because the father is happy. Happy because he now has his younger brother back. But no. He is jealous. He is angry as hell. And he goes to the father and says, are you kidding me? I have never left you. I have never disobeyed you. You have never given me a bath, shampooed my hair, washed my back with ivory soap or Dove. It smells better. You've never butchered a cow or a goat or a sheep. And the father simply says, if brother was lost, he's found now. It's time to rejoice. That's the story, in a very crude way. Now, let me unpack that for you. And that's the answer to your question, by the way, Paulo, about wisdom. Father can be a whole host of things. I'll put some of these things on the board for clarity. So you have a father, okay? It could actually be a human being with a good amount of experience and wisdom. It could be a source of stability. It could be God. It could be understanding. But a father is an anchor. If you've seen the movie Titanic, for example, or any movie that has ships in it, this huge iron thing that goes down. The ship can move around, but it's not going to go very far because it's kind of being held at a certain location by this heavy piece of metal. That's what a father is. It's like having a savings account. Go out there, spend whatever money you want from your checking accounts. When you run out, you know that you have a savings account. It's untouched. For those of us who are parents, what do we do sometimes if we happen to be at a place of privilege? Once in a while, whatever your income may be, you take $10 of that and you put in the savings for your kids, and you won't touch it. That's like their ice cream money, or their house money in the future, or their education money. Okay? Now that is the father. It's very, very, very important. It means it doesn't matter who you are, what you do. You can always go back to it. Now, father can also be culture and tradition. where you have strong narratives. Consider, for example, the movie Moana. Right? You have this tradition. Then tradition gets forgotten. Someone finds it, goes on a quest. The tradition comes to life, and they go back and save their people. So that is what a father is. Now, this father has two components. You have a son here, okay, very obedient, conforms, accepts. He is what we call a law-abiding citizen. Pays the taxes, goes to church like Job. Okay? He doesn't do anything wrong. Okay. Then you have another son. He is disobedient, unlawful. He is extremely naughty and chaotic. This first son is an extrovert. He looks at the signs out there and he follows them. No questions asked. This is a life lived without any reflection or examination. He simply says yes. Like the movie Jim Carrey, Yes Man, he says yes to everything. And there's a good reason to say yes, because you have a father. He has wisdom. He says get married and you say fine. Go to school, you say fine. He even picks the major for you, what you should study, how you should study it. He is a shortcut to your success. Not wisdom, but success. You will be married. You will have children. I'm not quite sure if you'll know what to do in the relationship or how to raise your kids, but you'll have them. This son, on the other hand, there is something about him that wants to have first-hand experience. The father says, go to school. And he says, why? Learn. Learn what? Get married. To who? I don't love anyone. Save your money. No. So if the father creates paradise for the first son, he creates hell for the second one. The second one wants to go out there and experience. The first one says, no, I trust you. The first son has no sin. The second son is also sinless. His only sin is he wants to experience life. As Emerson would say, or Thoreau, he wants to suck the marrow out of life. You know, the first couple weeks of a love relationship, you want to be with this person 24/7. That's what this guy wants to do. Now, money. This is what the father has. He, the first son, goes to the father and says, can I get $10? Father says, sure. But here's the $10, get milk. The second son, who's a bit naughty, comes to the father and says, I don't want $10. I want my share, which is $1 million. Now, money, it's about power. All of you in this class are profoundly powerful. Why? You are young. You are healthy. You have dreams. You have 60 years to look forward to. You are rich. You have things that most people don't have, which is ability to go to school. You have independence. You have choice. Now, you may not have those green stuff in your pocket, but you have your youth and you have your health. Now, whatever shape or form of power you may have, all of us have only one use for power, which is we spend it. You have no choice but to spend your power. You are going to spend your youth. Okay? Now remember why you're able to spend anything. You have time. It's a privilege that most people up in age don't have. When you're young, when you look at your youth in time, you say, I want to be successful. I want to have my own company, my own house, my own car. When you get a little older, the way you spend time is, I want to die without pain. I don't want to get sick. So you need to understand your perspective. Okay? The way you think about time and the way you spend time is going to change. Now, when you're 20 versus when you're 70. Okay. Now, this kid goes out there and spends his time, spends his youth, spends his health until he is young no more. He is healthy no more. Or maybe he no longer has any money. Or maybe he no longer feels that he has much time. What is going to happen to anybody who comes to realize they have lost something profoundly significant? It's called regret. It doesn't happen immediately. Okay? You have all these feelings that come up. You feel a little frustrated, anxious, sad. Then you ask something you've never asked before, which is, why? Why the hell did I go to school to learn all that useless information? Why did I spend all this money on drugs, on alcohol, on porn, on car, when I could have saved them and buy a house? Now remember, the second son has what we call regret. It's a component that the first son will never have. Because you need to understand what regret does. It forces you to go back in time and ask why about everything that you have done. If you happen to be in a relationship where you no longer want to be, you say, why did I get involved with this person? Remember, without regret, there is no baptism. Okay? Remember, regret is the outcome of sin. Making wrong choices. Spending without reflecting, without examining, without knowing. Okay? The son has regret. Now, a couple of things can happen. He can become so depressed that he enters paralysis, chronic, lifetime. Okay. This naughty son is extremely lucky, and I'll tell you why. He has the regret, he has the remorse, he has the shame. It's important. Regret, remorse, shame. This guy does not need a Jesus Christ to make him feel bad. Knowing that he has wasted this stuff makes him feel bad enough. Jesus Christ has no power over him. He doesn't need someone to tell him to repent. It's happening inside him already. Okay? What makes the son, the second son, so lucky is the following. He has a great relationship with the father. He has a father. He has a culture and a tradition to go back to. Okay? He has God, perhaps. He is religious. And maybe he just really has a great physical father. Now, look, if you have a lot of regret, remorse, and shame, but you don't have this stuff, if you don't have a father to go back to, if you don't have a religion to go back to, if you don't have a foundation to go back to, there is a really, really great chance of you simply kind of just living out your life in waste. Anger management. You're always on damage control. Always. Okay. Remember, the Father allowed you to leave in peace. But because of this great relationship that the both of you have had, He has an open door policy. Leave, but come back whenever you want. Now, what you have is this. This second child who goes out and, spends all of his money begins to look at time in a very, very different way. Begins to look at youth that was spent in time and was changed into old age. Begins to look at this very different way. Now, my question to Paulo was what? I am 21. You are 31. You're married with 2 kids. I am to be married and hopefully have children. Do you have any advice for me? My expectation, and this is not about you, is this. I am not asking a random human being. I'm asking a very close friend who has hopefully been able to reflect on her relationship, on her own transition from a 20-year-old to a 25 to a 30, to have been touched by the difficulties of life. Difficulties of being married or being in a long-term relationship and slowly seeing a change. Having 2 children in an environment that is not children-friendly. In a culture where pornography is the biggest and the fastest and the most powerful money-making machine. In a place where people are born to be lonely, alienated, isolated. In an environment where people don't have relationships. They don't have fathers. Okay. Paula is my father. I go to her and say, should I? Now here's the thing. This father is extremely wise and yet is not able to convince his young son to educate him, to teach him, to make him understand how valuable time, money, youth are. That's the first thing you need to grasp. Wisdom cannot be taught to anyone. And the more you love your son, the less you're able to do anything for him, because you understand that wisdom is non-negotiable, non-transferable. It lives inside you, and it may die inside you without you being able to give it to anybody, ever. The father also knows a couple of other things. Even if he was to give his wisdom to his son is not in a position to receive it well. It will only kind of evolve into having a very, very violent conversation where the father will experience anger, And the son will experience anger plus hatred. The relationship will suffer. The son will go away, will never return because he hates his father. So you know what the father does? Sits in silence and watches the son ruin himself. And he can't do much. The son who sinned, who left paradise to become authentic, creative, committed lots of wrongs, again, has components that this first son doesn't have. Regret, remorse, and shame. And they come because you reflect, because you think, because you feel. This son has none of them. Now remember, it's not enough for you to regret. It won't make you any wiser. You need to be able to put your regret into action, and that's the following. Anyone who is born to be human has no choice but to have a humongous ego. You don't want to be told you're wrong. You don't want to be told you're stupid. Something happens to this kid where he says, I am incompetent. I am no good. There is no hubris, no pride, no self-deception inside the second son. And because he has been baptized from inside, not baptized in a religious way for those of you who are allergic to religion, baptized because they understand that they wasted their time. Okay? That understanding cleanses them from the inside. He will go now to his father. In a very mature way says, I will accept whatever my father does to me. Whether he slaps me or embraces me, I will accept. Okay? Now, because the first son has never disobeyed, he doesn't understand what it means to make mistakes. What you have in the first son is a man with a good amount of judgments. Judgments with zero understanding because he never goes out. In the second kid, you have a guy who has a lot of experience. Comes to realize 90% of it is bad. Okay? Now here's the thing now that the book doesn't say, but you should kind of just insert it in there, which is this. The father will eventually die, and the son will take his place. This son, who is now a father, gets married, has a son. And the son will look at him and say, Dad, I want to go out there and experience life. Now he will try to kind of talk to his son about the value of time, the value of youth. Whether or not he's successful, no one knows. And the cycle continues. Now, the problem with regret, which is your gateway towards wisdom, is that you have to be very, very honest. And it's very, very painful. And so regret remains as an abstract concept for many of us. Now, it may be true that you have tiny pieces of wisdom inside you that you can tell me, Amir, you can love. But let me ask you, this 25, 30-year-old guy that you're with, does he have a job? Is he good with his parents?
How has he been in different relationships? Where does he live? What does he do? Who is he? And then you say, Amir, listen, life is expensive. You're too young to have children. Listen, America is not a very unsafe place to be in, especially when it comes to relationships. You're a woman, young woman, go to school, finish it up. Get your master's, maybe even a PhD. Once you have reached a modicum amount of power in your life, then get married. Just in case your relationship doesn't work out, you have a father to go back to, i.e. education. And then you'll warn me about children. Children are great, but they're going to change everything. Are you ready? Let me tell you how they're going to change it. And then you're going to bullet down everything for me. Your time is going to go. Your energy is going to go. You won't have sleep. You won't shower. You won't see your friends. You sure your husband doesn't have anger issues? Because he's going to go to work from 9 to 5, he's going to come home, there is no dinner. And then you're going to throw the kids at him. He's ready for that? Is he mature enough for that? Is he civilized enough for that? And when you ask me these questions, when you tell me these bullet points, something in me begins to change. I say to myself, how come I didn't think of those things? It's not enough for me to go out with this guy and just have a good laugh or have a nice dinner out. Is he ready for a family life? Is he ready to be monogamous, to be committed, to be responsible? Because you need to be in a different stage in life. It's not enough to sin. It's not enough to make mistakes. Mistakes are ultimately a source of wisdom, but they need to be processed well. Without processing mistakes, it's impossible. Because what you have in mistakes are just data. I should have done this, I should have done this, I should have done this. Why did I do all those things? And if you're really honest, you're going to feel about things very, very intensely. Part of the reason, maybe just 5% of my influence on Chris, I didn't forget how it felt to be 20 and not like school. And in fact, dislike most of my instructors. But through time and age, I came to realize that, if your father isn't rich, if your mother isn't rich, and if you're not sitting on a mountain of money, the idea of you working at Home Depot for the rest of your life, it's not a pleasant image to have. What little power I had over him, I forced him to go to school. So he doesn't have to repeat my sins. He's got his own sins to worry about. But at least when it comes to school, master's degree, and a modicum amount of power that it gives him, he doesn't need to commit that sin. He's free in that regard. So what you're saying is true. There are lots of people who are up in age, have committed a lot of mistakes in their life, but they have repressed, pushed down what they have witnessed about themselves by either drinking or smoking or distracting themselves with nonsense. But even in those people, even if your father is an alcoholic and sees you drinking a bit too much, he'll tell you, don't drink as much. Even if your father has been crummy in relationships, and if he sees certain hints in you, that carbon image of who he is, he'll tell you, that's not the way to be. Look at my life. Don't be like that. Now, it doesn't mean he's going to change anything,
by himself. But it doesn't mean that he can give you bullet points about your life and how you should go about yours. It just means he's giving you a bumper sticker. Son, you're drinking too much. I think there is something inside us. It's kind of like having antennas of sorts. I'm not sure how we have them, why we have them, but we have them. You're able to recognize, to distinguish between knowledge and wisdom. We don't know how. I think it's one of those mysteries in life that they should just leave alone. You know, you can walk into a classroom, for example, and you look at your instructor, whoever he or she may be, and you say, wow, they have a lot of nice information. It's exciting. And what they're doing really is giving you a shortcut. Instead of reading like 2,000 pages of the Republic written by Plato some 2,500 years ago, they just give you like an idiot's cliff version. You know? Then you walk into a different class or a different environment where someone gives you the same stuff in a different way. You know, one gives you the letter of the law, one gives you the spirit of the law. And you have no choice but to be attracted to it. It's not even up to you. There's a Russian novelist by the name of Fyodor Dostoevsky. I'm not going to tell you the story today because we're out of time, but in one of his books, I think it's called Brother Karamazov, in one of the chapters, chapter 5, I think, it's about Jesus having come back. And here's the thing, it's about the 15th century. People just feel that they are in the presence of someone great. I mean, the energy of the environment basically changes, and you feel that. Our mistake sometimes is you want to put it within the construct of your mind, of your intellect, your own kind of selective experiences, and it doesn't fit. And so you try to force or jam it into one of those boxes. And then you say, well, you know, wisdom should behave this way and this way and this way. When in fact, it's not true. It's a living entity. It grows the way it wants to. So you can't actively go out there looking for wisdom. It won't work. Do you have any questions? I'm sorry to have rambled on for almost 10 hours. Any questions or comments before we... So Paula, I want to get married. What should I do? Have a nice day. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Tell your parents I said hello. See you on Thursday.